Hi there, this is Art and Such with my rainbow loom tutorial for Stan Smith from American Dad, and the rest of the family is up on my YouTube site already. For this pattern I'm using a navy blue, black for the hair and the tie, a little bit of white for the shirt, a pale skin tone, and for the eyes I've used 2 white beads with a black Sharpie marker to draw on the pupils. So if you'd like to use bands for the eyes or beads of a different kind, you can. I'll show you how to make it with these small pony beads though. And I'm going to do everything with you, everything as you see it here. Let's start with our arms. And one last note here, for parts of the body and the arms I'll be using sets of 3 or 4 bands at a time. If you feel that's too hard for you to work with or you're trying to save bands, you can stick with 2 per set, but it will end up a little thinner. So for our arms, we are going to start with a single skin tone band for the hand. Wrap it 3 times around your hook. You can make it tighter if your band is a little stretched out. We're going to put it onto 4 sets of double blue bands. Pull your wrapped over, replace the other end. Second one. 3. And 4. And at this point you can decide whether you want to have the thicker arm or the thinner. For thinner, you'll be putting on another 4 sets of double bands. For the thick, we're going to be switching to 3 bands at a time for the next 2 sets. And again, another 3. Put them on the end of your hook and pull these over. And then we're going to do 1 set with 4 to make it really, really thick. This is for the shoulder area. And because we don't want to work with this many bands on our loom, we're going to pull this onto 2 bands, and these are going to help us to connect it later. And let's make our other arm. We'll go through a little bit faster with you. Just to review, it is a single wrapped 3 times. This was our skin tone. Hold on to 4 sets of double blue bands. And then we were switching to 3 bands at a time for the next 2 sets. And finally a set of 4 for our really thick piece. And then we'll pull the last bands here onto 2 more blues, and then it'll be easier to fit it onto the body. You can leave this on your hook for the moment. We aren't going to use the hook again until we've got some of this laid out on our loom. We are placing 2 skin tone bands from the top center to the second on the center, and our loom is set up with the middle row raised just above the other 2. And these are going to be our neck piece. You'll switch to white, and we're going to come down diagonally, second center to second right with 2 bands. Repeat that on the other side. Come down with 2 bands in the center. And then we're going to go from the 3rd center to the 2nd on the right with double bands, and 3rd center to the 2nd on the left with double bands. From here on we're only using blue bands, and don't worry about the tie, we're going to do that when we're finished everything else here. So come down the center with double bands 5 times. This will bring you to your 8th peg in the middle. And on the side, again, this is optional. If you want a thinner body, if you're fine with that, you can use double bands. I'm going to use 3 bands for each set coming down 10 times on either side. So 3 bands, 3 bands, 3, that's our 3rd set, our 4th set, 5th set, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the last one, and this will take us almost to the bottom of our loom. This reaches the second last peg from the bottom. 10. Just double checking there, and let's start on the other side. We're going to come down from that second peg downwards in sets of 3 again. And this time we don't really have to count. As long as it lines up with our left side, we'll know that we have the right amount. You can always place your bands on one at a time and layer them in the set of double or the set of 3 as you've chosen to fill it with here. You can see it takes a minute sometimes to grab all 3 together. For our boots, we're going to follow the boot design from Isalicious Designs by Kate Schultz. And for this, we're going to switch to black, our shoe color. We're taking 2 black bands, and we're going to wrap them twice around the hook together. Pull this onto 2 more black bands. Oops, try that again. Using my hook with the thicker side here, thicker piece. You want it to slide nicely, so let's make sure it's all on. Put your other end back on. We're going to do this one more time for the second part of our first boot. 2 bands wrapped twice. Pull them onto 2 bands. And this time, before you put this back on, what we're going to do is take the first end here, the one closest to the end, and pull it over. And then what you'll do is put your thumb into this side, and we're going to pull this off of the hook. Put the hook into the other side, turn it around, bring your other band over, your last band over, and take the piece off of your finger and onto the hook. And this can now go onto double black bands and be placed on the second peg from the bottom on one side of your loom. Like so. We're going to do the second one. I'll talk you through it, but we'll go a little faster here. 2 bands wrapped twice, pulled onto 2 more black bands. Do that again. 2 bands wrapped twice, pulled onto 2 more black bands. And remember, instead of replacing the ends on the second one, we'll be pulling over the nearer piece of the first. Put your finger in, pull it off, grab the other side, pull your second piece over here, and replace. And this goes onto 2, and then we have our other shoe. This goes on the bottom right. We just need our arms and some holding bands. You have your arms on the hook. Try and get them to sort of sit the direction you want. So that might mean taking your piece off the hook and bringing your hook through from the other side. If you need to flip it around, if you want it to point the other way, you can always, I'll just show you here, take it out and put your hook in from the other direction. At any rate, this is going to go onto your second peg down on either side. Transfer all of the bands off of your hook. Make sure you get them all. And we need double bands, so 2 bands. We're going to come to this last peg that we used in the middle, the 8th peg down, and we're going to place a band across the pegs just above it. And these are our double bands, and we're pulling it above the 7th peg down in the center. For our next two caps, we are going to double them over, twist it around onto itself, and bring it across in a triangle formation. And the same above. This will give him a tighter core area and also make the chest a little broader in comparison. And our last two are going to be single bands, just stretched out across in triangle formation. We're going to loop up the center until we reach the white piece here. So grab your bottom two blue bands, and it's going to be a little loose here, so you might want to hold on. Find your next one from underneath, your next two. We're going to loop up another 2 times. Now find your top 2 white bands, and we're pulling them back over into the left hand side. Find your next 2. Oh, I'm not sure if that was the right one, was it? I think we're good. Find your next 2 and pull them up and over to the right hand side. And I'm going to do this last white piece after we do the sides. Don't forget it if you're moving ahead of me here. Let's go back to the bottom, pull back your foot, get your blue bands from underneath. There are 3, remember? We're going to loop them up and over to the peg above. And all the way up here, if you followed my lead, you have 3 bands in each set, and you'll be pulling all 3 up and over. So if you grab 2 like I just did there, or only 1, or if you'd like to take them over one at a time, that's fine. Just make sure you come back for the others so you don't have any bands sticking out later. Here we have our triangle band, so watch out for that. Push it back, get only your bottom 3. Push back your doubled over triangle band, keep going up the side. And one more time. And we need to get our bottom 2 diagonal white bands. They're coming from the second peg on the middle to the second on the side. So pull it out sideways if you need to. I think I'm going to do that here. You can even hold it with your finger as you get your hook in with the open part pointed away. You're going to reach under and pull them up and through. You'll have a little bit of tension here, but not for too long, so don't worry about it. We'll get this off the loom shortly. We're coming under our other foot and getting the bottom 3. I'm just going to hold this down a second. Sorry about that. Next 3. And keep going straight up. All the way to the arm again. Coming to those triangle bands, you want to watch out for those. And just watch you aren't grabbing those triangle bands. And you can always come under to the bottom and give it a little tug if you aren't sure whether you have all your pieces. See, there's a loose one here, so that means need to come under one more time. We're going for our last 2 white diagonals, and then we'll loop up the rest of the center. Come back in, grab your bottom 2 whites from that 3rd peg, and grab your 2 skin tone bands, loop them up. You'll be putting your hook through the skin tone bands on this top peg here, but just check that you've got some of your tension loosened up first before you try and take this off the loom. And to do this, I'm keeping the open part of my hook turned away from me, and using my fingers on my hook, I'm just easing some of the tension until we're really close here. You might even want to take a separate hook so that you can keep a hold of your top ones while you're removing this. Can check for any loose or missed bands, and I have one right here. I'm gonna just tuck it in for now. I'll clean that up shortly. And you're gonna turn your body so that the piece which is all white is going to be on your front side. I'm putting my hook through from the opposite direction, and then I'm going to just tuck in again, as I said, my loose piece. You can, if you have loose pieces, you can cut them off, weave them in, throw it on a C-clip. It's kind of up to you. Or you can, if you're a real perfectionist, you can undo it and try it again. Nothing wrong with that. Give everything an adjustment. We will add the tie at the end, but first let's come to our loom here. So we're switching to black for the hair. We want 2 bands from the top center to the top right, 2 from the top center to the top left, 2 down on the left, and then we're going to be switching to skin tone bands. Just want to grab a look here, make sure this is all right. We have 3 sets of double skin tone coming down the center. So 2 bands, and 2 bands, 2 bands again. We'll add 2 sets of double skin tone bands on the left side. And for the face, this isn't going to be quite symmetrical because I wanted to give him more of a jaw on the right and more of a profile, so we have a little extra black on the one side. So for the right, we're going to come down with 4 sets of double skin tone bands. And then to close it up, we'll come from our 4th peg on the left to our 4th peg in the center with double skin tone bands. And we're going to stretch 2 bands up from the 5th right to the 4th center. Now for our face, we want it to be pretty tight overall, so we're going to use, let me show you this, doubled over skin tone bands. Make a holding triangle across your 2nd pegs and repeat that for the set underneath. And we are going to make our eyes in just 1 second. Okay. For our eyes, if you were using pony beads or bands, you can put them directly onto a small hook and thread them onto a skin tone band. If you're using beads with a smaller hole, you can use a piece of dental floss or a thin piece of wire to pull it onto your bands, and you can, there are several tutorials that'll show you how to do that. Basically your dental floss will come through your bead. I'll just show you really quickly here on a large hole bead. So you would put both of your beads onto a piece of dental floss if you had one with a smaller hole. Put it through your skin tone, bring your dental floss back and through, and slide it on. So that's if you need help getting a smaller bead on. And now we're going to continue here. We are putting our eyes from the 2nd peg to the 2nd peg going across. And you can separate the eyes a little bit and get your hook in between and pull it up and over, the 2nd in the middle. Now we need to put our body on. This is actually our last piece, we're almost done. Oh, and just so that our cheek isn't bulging out completely, what we want to do here, one last thing, is to grab the top band from that 3rd peg to the 4th and just reach it over the center band here. Now this is where it looks a little bit messy, so just be prepared here. We're taking our neck bands off of the hook and we're going to place them onto the 4th peg down in the center where all of our bands are converging. And I'm stretching this down a little bit to the next peg so it's out of the way. We're going to be looping downwards and out. So our first band are these 2 bands. We're going to reach in and pull it down, and we're going to get our next 2 and pull them over to the left, and then we can loop straight up the center. And you'll have to watch out for your eye bands, your triangle bands here. Now for our right side, we're going to come in at the bottom. This will be a little loose, so hold on to it. We're taking the bottom 2 skin tone bands from under that 5th peg, pulling them up and over, and we're going to continue looping straight up from there. Push back the bands that are holding the eyes, Come on up. And you can grab your last two black bands and pull them to the center. On your left hand, it's pretty straightforward. We're just going for the bottom sets of double bands. So push everything else back. Grab your bottom two, loop it up. Push back your holding bands, grab your bottom two and up. Continue up one more time. And find your last two, bring them to the center. You can take one band, I'm going to use two because these are weaker bands I'm using, and you're going to turn the open part of your hook away from you, bring it through all of the bands on your top center peg, and pull a securing band, or two if you like, through, over, pull one side over the other to create a slip knot. And we're going to carefully take this off the loom now. We're actually almost done. We need our tie and our eyes. You'll see it's kind of loose on the right. That's good. That's how we want it to be. You're just going to give everything a little bit of a tug. You have your securing bands, which can be hidden in the back and put onto a C-clip. So I've put my hook through two other bands, and I'm going to pull these under and through, just so they aren't as floppy, and this will go on a C-clip. And I'll tuck this in one more time. And let me show you how to do the eyes. If you are using beads, you'll take just a black marker, and you can do eyelids or just pupils. It's up to you. I'm just going to do pupils on this one. You also get to decide whether you want the pupils to be on the side, so it's more of a profile shot with Stan looking sideways, or you can have the eyelids on the bottom. Either which way is fine. And give the whole face a little tug. If there are pieces that you feel are looser than you'd like, you can tighten them up and hide them in the back. We are going to make our tie now. So take a single black band, wrap it 3 times around your hook, and pull it onto 2 black bands. This is the same as the tie that I use in my other patterns. I'm going to take one side and keep it on my thumb, and the other side will go right over the head. And then we will reach through the body, right where the white finishes. Put our black bands on, carefully keep holding them, and pull them to the back. And I already have a C-clip here, but you'll probably want to add a C-clip at this point to hold these in place. I'm going to throw them on a new one here. Let's get those nice and snug. Alright, give everything a little tug. Can stretch them out or tighten parts up as you see fit. And there is your Stan Smith. I thank you for watching, and I encourage you to see some of my other patterns. The rest, as I say, of my Family Guy set and my American Dad are online. So check them out. Take care.